We're going to look at updating firmware on network devices. Firmware is flash memory that holds the programs that a device needs to run. Devices such as wireless access points and routers have firmware that you can update. By updating the firmware, you can add features, fix bugs, and fix security problems with the device. We're going to update our wireless access point. Most wireless access points have a web interface that allows you to connect to and manage the device. One of the first things I'll need to know when updating the device is the device model, and here it is right here. Let me copy that. The next thing I can do is I can check the current firmware version, and I can see that my current version is version 1.05 that was released December 17th, 2002. So chances are this firmware is outdated. Let's go to the Linksys website. And to check for updates, we typically go to the support or perhaps a download area. I'll enter the model number for my device. And here we have a link right here for updating the firmware. I need to select my hardware version. The actual router itself will typically be stamped with the version number. And then from here, I have a list of things that I can download for this device. I'm going to download the firmware version 3.04. And let's just save that to the desktop. So I've downloaded this compressed file. Let's look inside of that compressed file. One of the things I'll see is a text document. Let's read that. Let's look through this text file, and I can see information about the update. For instance, the recent update of October 31st, 2005 fixes some known problems with the access point. If I scroll down, I can see other fixes and additions that have been added through various firmware updates. The current update that I'm installing, 3.04, includes all the previous updates that are listed in this file. We'll see down at the bottom that version 1.05, which is the version I currently have, is the initial release. So this firmware has not been updated since the device was installed. Notice that update 1.08 added Wi-Fi protected access, or WPA, that included support for AES and TKIP encryption. So we can see that by updating the firmware, I can not only fix bugs, but I can also gain important security features. Before I can update the firmware, I need to extract this file, which is the update file. And to do that, I'll simply copy and then paste onto the desktop. And that extracts the file that is required for the update. Now let's go back to the wireless access point, and let's look at a few settings before we actually perform the update. Notice here on the mode, I can choose either mixed mode, which is B and G, or I can choose G only. And also down here, I have my WEP settings, either enable or disable, but these are the only security settings that I can currently apply to this access point. So I've downloaded the update, but I'm not quite ready to begin. One of the first things is I've scheduled to perform this update early in the morning before other people come. During the update, my wireless access point will be unavailable, which might disrupt network service for some people in the company. Additionally, I should, before performing the update, perform a backup of my access point configuration. The backup includes all of the settings, such as the IP address and mask, as well as the security settings for my wireless device. Depending on the device, the update might erase all of my configuration information. So I'll go over here and I'll perform a backup of my configuration settings. And I'll save that file again to the desktop. Okay. In addition to backing up my settings in this manner, I should also write down any of the settings for my access point, so that if I have to manually reconfigure my access point, I'll have those settings. This is just in case my backup file is corrupted or not usable. So I've downloaded the update, performed my backup. Now I'm ready to apply the firmware update. On this model, I need to go to the Help section, and then I have a button here, Firmware Upgrade. First thing I need to do is to browse for the path of where the update file exists. And remember, I put that on the desktop, and here it is. And then when I'm ready, I can simply click the upgrade button. Notice that upgrading the firmware may take a few minutes, and during the upgrade, I should not turn off the power or press the reset button. So let's begin. Now you'll notice that during the upgrade, I really don't have any kind of a status indicator. I simply have to assume that the upgrade is being performed. And this is why they warn you ahead of time. You might at this point start to wonder, well, is anything really happening? And so you might be tempted to turn everything off or disconnect and restart. But instead, you just need to sit and wait for the update to complete. Okay, my upgrade is complete. During the update process, the access point is restarted automatically. In fact, now you'll notice that I can no longer connect to the wireless access point. This occurs when the access point restarts. What's happened in this case is that the firmware update has erased my configuration settings. So remember the backup we took previously? Well, that was to take care of this instance when my configuration changes have been removed. To make changes, I'll need to go back and connect to the wireless access point as if it were a new system. And instead of using the IP address I had assigned to it previously, I need to use the default IP address that comes with the access point when it is unconfigured. And then instead of using the username and password that I had previously configured, I need to use the default username and password. Now, if you can't remember these settings, you can go to the Linksys website and download the information about the device, and it will tell you the default IP address and the default username and password to use on a brand new system. Okay, so here I am at my new updated wireless access point. If I scroll over, I can also see up here in the corner that my current firmware version is now 3.04 instead of the 1.05 that it was previously. You'll notice that the screens look significantly different. Whereas before I had my web settings on this page, they are now in a different location. For instance, let me go to the wireless section, and for the mode, notice that I can now choose wireless B only in addition to the mixed and the wireless G. So this is one of the benefits that I have received from updating my firmware. If I go to my wireless security settings, you'll notice that I can now choose various security settings on my access point. Remember, before I only had WEP available as my security type. So let's go and try to restore my settings from my previous configuration. So I'll go to the administration, and here I have the backup and restore option. And let me choose restore settings. I'll browse for the file that I saved that included my configuration, and then I'll click restore. And notice now I have a problem that I have the wrong file to restore. In this case, my previous configuration file is incompatible with this version of the firmware. So what I need to do now is go back and reconfigure my settings. So I'll change my password. And after making a change, I need to scroll down and click Save Settings. I'll reconnect using my new password. Go to my IP address, change that back to its original setting, click Save Settings again. Notice now I'm prompted to reconnect using the new IP address. Let's go to my wireless settings, change my SSID back, and the broadcast, and save my settings again. And then let me change my security settings. I'll set my encryption type, configure my keys, and save the settings again. Okay, and that's it. We've looked at how to update your firmware, going to the manufacturer's website, downloading the newest firmware. We've looked at checking the firmware versions. We've looked at backing up your system prior to it performing the upgrade. We've performed the firmware upgrade and then attempted to restore our settings. Because the upgrade erased our current settings, we've looked at how to go back and reconfigure our settings for our access point.